involving Corbin Burnes? And how does this affect David Rubenstein's offseason plan? And what is Mike Elias doing to ensure the Baltimore Orioles' success in 2025? Welcome to Orioles Digest. I'm your host, Kam Brice, and happy holidays, everyone. If you haven't done so, hit that subscribe button. If you're a part of this percentage, let's change that today. Come join Orioles Digest as I give you daily updates about the Baltimore Orioles that you don't want to miss. The Corbin Burnes sweepstakes are starting to heat up, and we have a major update from one MLB insider. Let's take a listen.
Well, like Bregman, like Alonso, another Scott Boras client, free to sort of set the pitching market this year with that 8-year, $218 million deal. Burnes, from what I understand, is looking for somewhere along the lines of that Steven Strasburg deal from 5 years ago, $245 million. The Giants were said to be very interested. I was told they had an offer out there that did not quite approach that number. It remains to be seen whether they're willing to, move that number up or potentially move elsewhere and look for other alternatives. The Blue Jays are another team that I've heard has a lot of interest in Burnes, but the question is, are they willing to go 7 years on a pitcher? It's very tough right now to find a team willing to commit 7 years at that kind of $30+ million AAV. So Burnes is going to have to wait a little bit, I think, unless the Giants or Blue Jays really jump up and seize control of that market.
Now, Mark Feinstein is a big MLB insider and has many connections to Scott Boras' clients. This is not good news if you're a Baltimore Orioles fans. The Corbin Burnes sweepstakes back to Baltimore is starting to look like an end. Over the past couple weeks, there have been 3 teams linked to Corbin Burnes: the San Francisco Giants, Toronto Blue Jays, and the Baltimore Orioles. Now, if you're the Baltimore Orioles, why haven't you offered Corbin Burnes a contract? He was your best ace last year, one of the best pitchers in franchise history, and what he did last season would make you think, oh, the Baltimore Orioles are going to sign Corbin Burnes to a massive deal this offseason. But they haven't even made an offer, and that's kind of confusing to me. When you see a guy like Corbin Burnes, guys like that don't grow in trees. Those are once-in-a-time aces. They don't come in the MLB factory a lot of times. So you have to take precautions and lock them guys up for years to come. It's very confusing to me. Now, Corbin Burnes projected to make well over $250 million and is looking like he's looking for a deal between 5 to 7 years. So it's time for Mike Elias and his team to make a move. We've already seen many free agents off the board, and the pitching market is dead now. The only options you have right now is Nick Pivetta, Jack Flaherty, or go to the trade market and possibly try to get a guy like Dylan Cease or Luis Castillo. And it's unsure if any of those teams will trade their proven aces, so it's kind of hard. You're in a difficult position right now, and the Baltimore Orioles put themselves in this difficult position. Coming into this offseason, the main point was getting a proven ace to help with this young rotation and this young team to finally push them to the playoffs. Get a guy that you can control for the next 4 to 5 years. And it was supposed to be Corbin Burnes. You knew Corbin Burnes was going to have a lot of suitors this offseason. A lot of teams are looking for aces for the next 4 to 6 years. So you are going to have to spend a boatload of money for a guy that caliber of pitching. So have they even pursued Corbin Burnes? Have they even made an offer to get him back? It's very confusing what Mike Elias and David Rubenstein is doing this offseason. We expected a big offseason. It was supposed to be one of the biggest offseasons in franchise history. I've said it on Twitter. I've said it on Instagram, YouTube, multiple times. This is going to be the biggest offseason in Baltimore Orioles history. If they make that big move, it will set them up for the long run. Now, they're walking into a difficult position heading into the 2025 season. So where does this put the Orioles for next season? So what's the next step for the Baltimore Orioles, and how can they better that team in 2025? Now, the next step for the Baltimore Orioles would have to be go out, sign a guy like Jack Flaherty. I know a lot of people are not high on him, and I've said this in almost every video. Honestly, I'm not high on Jack Flaherty, and I wouldn't sign him for a contract. If he was in the first, second, third, or maybe the fourth option, I wouldn't do it. But at this point, you have to get another starting pitcher. And there are only 2 guys left on the market, Nick Pivetta and Jack Flaherty. And I was looking at Nick Pivetta's stats earlier. I was looking at his baseball reference page, all his mechanics and his metrics. And I really like this guy. And I think he'd be a key contribution to the Baltimore Orioles. So let's take a look at his stats and what he did last season. Now, when you look at his stats, I know you're going to look at the high ERA, 4.14 ERA. Let's
So
not concern ourselves with the ERA. The whip is sitting around 1.126, kind of decent. Walks a lot of batters, that's okay. The Baltimore's have a pitching development that helps guys who are walking batters. Now, the good thing I like about Pivetta is he strikes out guys a lot. 172 strikeouts in only 145 innings. Now, Pivetta is a guy that I'm not high on at all. I would rather sign Jack Flaherty. The bad thing about Flaherty is he's going to want a massive deal from the Orioles, knowing that the Orioles have no other option but to sign him or go trade one of their best prospects for a 1 year rental, in which I'm sure we're tired of seeing the Orioles do that. Now, I know a lot of fans are tired of the 1 year rentals. That's the same situation that the Baltimore Orioles are in right now with Corbin Burnes. If they would have signed him to an extension during the season, it would have been swiftly. But Scott Boras and his clients does not like to sign extensions during the season. And for Corbin Burnes, it's just a waiting game. So it's putting the Baltimore's in a bad position. You're looking at the top two options of Nick Pivetta or Jack Flaherty. Both aren't top rotation guys. Both aren't going to be your savior of your bullpen or your starting rotation. They're just going to be guys to hold the rotation down until maybe Kyle Bradish comes back midway. And if Grayson Rodriguez, like I said before, I believe he will take a big step. Now, this is the time for Grayson Rodriguez, Zach Eflin, Kay Povich, all those guys to take that next big step. We saw last season what Kay Povich did. He can be a potential star in this league. It's just about consistency with him. Once he stops walking batters, I think he has all-star potential. Grayson Rodriguez, health is the only problem with him. The only problem with Zach Eflin is his stuff good enough to be a top guy in your rotation? We saw last season, he had a low ERA. He was one of the best pitchers in baseball once the Orioles traded for him at the deadline. But he's not going to be that one punch. He's not going to be your ace. He's not going to be a guy that pitched well over 180 innings and has ace potential stuff in his top three in Cy Young voting. That goes to Kyle Bradish. And it's concerning that Kyle Bradish won't be back next season until maybe the end of the season. And that's kind of pushing it. He's recovering from Tommy John. So right now, we don't even know if he's going to be back next season. The Baltimore Orioles are in a bad spot right now. And Mike Elias and David Rubenstein have to do everything in their power to bring in a pitcher. Luis Castillo are amazing arms. But this time, you're going to be paying Luis Castillo, a guy who's already declining his career, well over $26 million a year. We can only hope that Corbin Burnes will return as a Baltimore Oriole. But right now, the hope is breaking thin. Thank you for watching Orioles Digest. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Come join the channel and give you daily updates. And Merry Christmas, everyone.